All right. Starting in 2 seconds. Everybody, here we go.
Deep within the bowels of the Underdark, the deadly race of Dark Elves, the Drow, gather, waiting. Kinravah was born into House Zolothar, with skin and eyes as dark as night, and hair the color of spilt blood. Seen first as a blessing from the Spider Queen Loth herself, it was soon discovered that she was far less physically inclined than any of her battle-ready female kin, and had no favor from the goddess. Tossed into the care of her father, her talent for the arcane arts soon blossomed with his help, along with plots that took root in her mind from such potential. Finding herself at the heart of a conspiracy that forced her from her home, she fled into the endless labyrinth of her underground world. Surviving off nothing more than scraps, a determination to live, and the aid from her feathered familiar, Kinravah emerged from the Underdark into Icewind Dale. At the point of utter exhaustion, she slowly began to accept her fate of an icy death, eventually succumbing to the cold and falling unconscious. Waking up only to find herself in the care of a local of 10 towns. She spent a few years among them recovering her strength, whilst overcoming the inevitable fear she instilled in others just by her appearance alone. Her thirst for knowledge could only be kept at bay for so long. Grabbing her supplies and saying goodbye to the local who rescued her from a frozen grave, she soon set out to Easthaven to seek its library in order to advance her studies and finally claim a future in Faerun that was truly her own. Kinravah of the Underdark is determined to never be a pawn again.
This year has been chaos.
Oh,
but just 1 second of your time before the game starts.
Hold on. Come on.
On Saturday, December 5th at noon Central Standard Time, we'll be having our first official Session 1 with the whole team together.
This. It's fine. It's fine.
That stream will be dedicated to the Direct Relief's COVID-19 response charity. Hey, Dan here. Look, I know this year has been chaos, but just 1 second of your time before the game starts. On Saturday, December 5th at noon Central Standard Time, we'll be having our first official Session 1 with the whole team together. That stream will be dedicated to the Direct Relief's COVID-19 response charity. All donations and profits made during that game will go straight to helping those suffering from the effects of COVID and also to the doctors and nurses out there on the front line every day. On top of that, we will be gathering subscribers to the Twitch channel and putting them into a drawing for free sets of dice and even a free D&D book, digital or physical, your choice. Tasha's Cauldron of Everything seems pretty interesting. So, get down to our Twitch channel and give it a follow to be notified when we go live next. Sorry about that. Now, on with the video.
Well, there's no video, but there is a stream. And welcome to the second of our one-shots, if you will. The 0.5 sessions, the prologues to our adventures in Icewind Dale. Welcome, Seth, our local drow wizard, to the adventure. Let's get some music going, yeah? Well, other than what was just announced, do you have anything, Seth, that you would like to plug or anything before we get started with the game?
Nothing really, I don't think.
All right, sounds good. Then I guess we can jump right into it. Before we get started, I just want to let everybody know that hasn't seen the first episode. These are not meant to be full-blown D&D sessions. This is not a 3 to 6 hour long session that we planned for. These are just little snippets of how the story begins, how these characters become a cohesive group. And so what I'm doing is, prior to having session 1, if you will, the first session which the group actually meets up and deals with each other, I'm having these little 0.5 sessions to kind of show the backstory or the prologue on how they eventually got from that backstory that you just heard on that video all the way to meeting up with each other eventually. So you can expect anywhere between 30 minutes to an hour, on depending on how fast we get through this, on the amount of content. Seth, your mic kind of keeps going in and out, in and out, in and out, in and out.
Oop, okay. Is that clearer?
Should be. Doesn't seem to be going in and out now, so should be good to go.
Okay.
All right, and on that note, let's go ahead and get started. Now, Kinravah, you found yourself in Icewind Dale not too long ago, but several months ago. You've already come up to the surface knowing that, you know, the surface is not much brighter than what the Underdark was. The Underdark, of course, being absolutely pitch black, but this nighttime seems to constantly be going on. You heard stories about the daylight being this horrible burning sensation to the skin, but ever since you've been here in Icewind, you've never had to experience that. It's been quite the pleasure, really, considering you had this horrible idea of what the surface would be like. The only thing that was not so nice was the actual weather itself, being as cold as it was. So after making your way to Easthaven, sorry, you made your way there and found that library. And working now in the library for several months, you've gotten used to it. As suddenly a gust of cold air flows through the library, causing several books to glide open and a few empty sheets and parchments to lift from the tables and fall to the ground. You instinctively place your hand out without even looking up from your current book you've been reading, which is the Knucklehead Knowledge book, to catch the falling vase off the shelf next to you. You see, this book usually falls the same exact way every time that door is open. And you've insisted that Tomlin Smithy, the library's elder furball clerk, move the long dead flower, but he insists that it be put back on the shelf every time. You look over, and you can see Tomlin making his way and closing the door as he ruffles his long winter cloak that looks to be made out of a wolf's pelt. He seems to be carrying a new book, that which seems unfamiliar to you. He takes off his coat and places it on the very familiar mounted deer's head on the wall that he always places his coat on every time he comes in for months now. Tomlin, being a little older, has a slight hunch to him, with his slightly graying blue fur and his white nose slowly returning to its more natural pink tone. As he warms up, he readjusts his little bifocals before slowly making his way over to you. Hello.
Hi.
What you reading?
I think the same book, at the very least, I'm pretty sure this is the same book I've read, 5 times already about these delightful fish you have around here.
Yes, anyways, oh, I'm sorry. And he takes the vase that you still have just kind of balancing in your hand, and you still kind of like, you're just eyeing up from the book, you know, kind of just having your eyes just peek over the top of the book as you look, and he grabs the vase from your hand and places it on the shelf, and he kind of twists it just the right direction that he wants. And he goes, "My husband, Geralt, would not be happy if that broke. God rest his soul."
You know, if we really wanted to, we could at the very least glue the thing to it. That might at least stop some things coming out of place.
You have glue? You've had glue this whole time?
Well, no. Right. Middle of nowhere. Keep forgetting about that. My apologies.
It's okay. Well, here. And he takes the book that he was holding and places it down on the table. And it's the book itself is made of a red leather cover and back, and it has scrawling of like decorative golden filigree on its binding. It looks kind of ornate, but you can see that the pages are pretty old, and the book itself seems to be a bit older. This is actually what he hands you. Let's see if I can find it. So as he kind of hands you the book, he turns it open, and this is what you see. And I will post this also in Discord so you can have a better sight of it. Oh, I keep forgetting. I need to keep that up. So actually, you know what? We won't post it in Discord. I'll just read it to you. On the inside of the book, it says, "In fire and flame, with torment and pain, I won't fight a dragon again. And deepest tundras where moons forever fly, freeze to ice nearly every scene, but their eternal soul cannot hope to die, the mysterious, insidious Winter Queen." You see, the book is, like I said, old. It's kind of falling apart in places. And there seems to be either some kind of red wine that's been spilt on it, or possibly old blood. You're not sure. Could be either.
Where did you get a hold of this? This seems much more... Well, forgive me if this sounds a little obnoxious, but this seems an awful lot more ornate than many other books we've had here, and I've read almost everything in here twice.
He's like, well, actually, we were given this. This is from a man, who was suspected just recently of evil things, and this so happened to be in his possession. We were asked to hold on to it until they figure out what to do with him.
Which sort of evil man are you referring to? Do you know at the very least his race, per se?
I'm not sure. I did not see him, nor did I ask. They just handed it to me. And you see that the book that he had, that he's given to you, he kind of closes it up himself and places his hand on top of it. And he says, "Kinravah, how long have you been here now?"
Well, are you referring to here as in... And she sort of motions around at the library in general, or do you mean in Icewind itself?
No, Easthaven.
I would say about a few months now. It's I'll admit it's kind of hard to keep track of the time.
It makes
I was
sense.
at least
Being that, daylight and all. Though I suspect you wouldn't know the day. And
I'll admit I'm... Go on.
And he kind of takes the book and takes it between his hands and holds it in front of you, and he goes, I believe it is meant for you to figure out what this book is about. You've read every book here in this library, if not several times now. We don't have the resources to figure out really what the significance of this book is, whether it may or may not be, in fact. But, if you possibly could take this to Bryn Shander, they may have something there that may be able to, I don't know, decipher this book.
She sort of opens the book a little bit, skims through some of the pages very quickly.
You open the book, and as you open the book, the pages themselves feel old. It's got that really stiff page feel. And as you turn the pages, you can just see it's just pages and pages of poetry and different types of writings. But it's mainly nonsensical, or I don't know, it is just someone's book of poetry, it seems.
She sort of takes her finger and runs it down one of the pages just to feel how old it is on her skin, and then looks back up at him. Well, Bryn Shander.
I know you've come here several months ago, but with your help around the library itself, it's not necessarily needed. We don't have much to keep. As much as I do appreciate your help, you might be more useful elsewhere. On top of that, I'm not going to be able to help with this book as much as I know you probably can.
I suppose I'll confess, having, and she motions at herself a little bit, having my kind around here probably doesn't exactly invite the visitors, does it? I suppose I could head over to Bryn Shander, but do you have any sort of transportation ready? Sled dogs? Anything, or will I have to make this on foot?
You see a very, genuine old man smile kind of creep across his face, and he reaches into his little pouch that he has dangling from his waist that he usually keeps his chalk and keeps different pens and writing utensils, and he pulls out a small rabbit's foot, and it looks like it's used. It's kind of dirty, maybe a little bit of dirt kind of on top of it, and he goes, "Here, I've secured you passage to Bryn Shander. If you take this and head to the southwest exit of Easthaven, you'll be met by the crew that I've hired to take you. Now, I knew you'd say yes, knowing your thirst for knowledge."
I almost feel a little bit insulted that I've become so predictable, but oh well, can't be helped, I suppose. Are they aware of, when she once again points at herself?
May have glossed over the details, but if they have come to be kind to me, I'm sure they understand that I don't partake in any kind of ruffians or align myself with those types of people.
I'll make sure I'm on my best behavior.
I gave him the word. Please do.
Of course.
Now you can gather what you need to make the journey. I was told that it shouldn't be too long from here to Bryn Shander.
Do you know if it's more than a one-day trip?
Oh, it's much shorter. They have a wagon and I believe some sled dogs to help. You should get there within maybe 4 or 5 hours, depending.
I suppose I won't need extreme rations for that then, and I suppose a simple sleeping roll, well, possibly.
Now I know
For such a short...
I know you didn't come with much, so just take what you need if you need extra. I expect you shall be gone for quite some time before returning.
I don't suppose you have a map to the road to Bryn Shander around here?
Map, you say? And he kind of goes through his things, and you can see him rifling through a bit of scrawlings, next to one of the bookshelves that is in the library itself. And he pulls out a small scroll. It's not very large. It's probably no bigger than 1 foot long and like 6 inches tall. It's very small, and it is a rough drawing, very rough drawing, of the different 10 towns, each in its location, but you get a general idea of where everything is. Not much comes from it though, as in you can only glean the names of the different towns and their general direction, essentially. And he goes, well, this is the only one I have. I'm not sure if it's helpful, but you can have it if you need.
I would greatly appreciate it if you didn't mind. This is more than what I found usually around here, so thank you.
Of course. Kinravah, please be careful. Take care of yourself.
I promise I will. Make sure that you are also alright, Tom. I greatly appreciate everything you've done for me here. I admit I'm still getting used to attitudes on the surface.
You know, when you first came to me, I was skeptical about your wantings and your earnestly to learn. I'm very happy you proved me wrong.
Here's hoping I can keep proving it.
My husband would be very proud of you. I appreciate you being here, and I wish you the best of luck.
I wish you the best as well. It should take me no less than an hour just to pack a few things here and there. Grab Omen,
Take your time.
I'll make sure that there's no more feathers left on the books.
Yeah, please, if you could. Make an old man's job easier. And he kind of gives you another kind of old man smile and like squints his eyes at you. He kind of shakes his nose. He clears his throat, shakes his glasses, and just kind of shuffles back to doing what he does. He goes to clean the shelves, grabs a book off the shelf, and begins to read. And you're free
As he starts to step away.
Go ahead.
As he starts to step away, Kinravah sort of reaches out as if she's about to tap his shoulder in thanks, but slowly pulls her hand back again and goes back to the back of the shop to just gather up a few supplies for the trip.
Excellent. I love it. He goes to sit down, and you go back to your makeshift room in the library. There was a storage closet that he had made room for you in, as he saw that you didn't have any many belongings, or he saw that you didn't have anywhere to sleep for the night. So he very graciously welcomed you in, even against his best nature to not trust a drow. But being as kind and old as he is, he didn't really mind too much. You go in and you see that there's some old heirlooms in there that you kind of pack up and put in. You even see a small gift from an old friend that you had made when you first got here to Icewind, as you pack that away as well. And as you pack all that stuff away, you make your way to the front entrance, and you see that Tomlin has kind of walked around and just he's just doing his basic stuff, you know, going in, cleaning books and the such. And he sees you making your way to the exit, and as he does, he goes over and he gives you he's hunched over, remember, but he is quite tall from being a furbolg, and he still stands a good maybe 3 inches taller than you do. And he reaches over and just gives you a big hug. And he knows that you are maybe not so much into it.
She just freezes up a little bit in his grasp and then awkwardly pats his back. I'll miss you too.
He steps away and he's like, oh, be good now. Fare thee
I'll
well.
do my best. You as well. And she sort of takes a cloak, throws it over herself.
Preparing for the cold as you open the front door to the library. And as you open the front door to the library, like a gust of wind goes through the library again and just knocks everything everywhere. And you can see Tomlin takes like his foot and reaches back and catches the flower as it falls to the ground once again, and picks up the flower without looking and places it back up on the shelf.
She was about to cast Mage Hand to try and catch that, but then she just goes, you got it. Yeah. She just sort of walks out of the room, out of the shop.
He gives you a silent nod in accepting that is just his life now. And you make your way out into the cold.
As she steps out into the cold, she just raises her arm up to summon Omen onto her arm. Just keeps walking as the owl appears.
You kind of raise your arm up into the air. When you raise your arm up into the air, a small glow of purplish light begins to emanate from your arm as a ring of light, of purple light, kind of comes up from your wrist. And then a circular disc with different types of runes kind of emanates from the top of your hand. And as that happens, the disc acts as almost like a plate or a portal, and suddenly the form of a large winter owl just into existence as the large wings kind of emanate from the light. And suddenly they just and just sit there on your arm or on your shoulder.
Alright, come along, old friend. We've got traveling to do. Hopefully you haven't gotten too comfortable here.
You just see it kind of like turn its head like really sharply and then kind of just ruffle its feathers. And
she heads.
Yeah, go ahead.
She heads. She just sort of reaches out and tickles it under one of its ears slightly before moving out over towards where Tom instructed her to go.
It seems to just absolutely love it. And at that point, you see that now, normally the weather is pretty heinous here in Icewind. It can be at times, at least. But you notice that now that the snow is falling quite gently, as the darkened twilight skies seem to be, in a better mood today. The snow falls gently as you can see, like right outside the building that you're in, a good 1 meter tall, 3 foot tall drift of snow has been just fallen upon this whole area. You see a furbolg sized path that has been created through it in order to get to the library itself. As you make your way to the southwest part of town, you readjust your pack on your back. causing the familiar to kind of on your shoulder to gain its balance. And as you make your way out, you see a small caravan of trade goods that seems to be escorted by a human male that seems to be messing with the dogs that are currently leading the thing. He seems to either be feeding them or petting them. And then in the driver's seat of the larger sled, you see two halflings, one male, one female. It's hard to tell the difference, but you can tell slightly from their different statures. And you can see that they look to be either bickering or talking to each other, one kind of raising their hands up and just kind of giving up, and you see one just kind of put their hands across their chest.
As she walks up, she sort of pauses for a moment, and she's speaking out loud more to her familiar than herself. See, usually disguise or put on the full display. You know what? No point in going through this. And she sort of reaches into the back of her hood, sort of flicks some of her long hair across her front, sort of making her features a little bit more beautiful and lined with her hair in a way, before stepping up and going, "Gentlemen, I hear that you're going to be helping me get to Bryn Shander."
You see that the halflings kind of both stop bickering at the same exact time as they hear you kind of like over the snow falling. And the human that was messing with the dog seems to notice you as well. The two that were bickering go back to talking to themselves, and the human kind of finishes up what he was doing and starts making his way over to you in the snow, and finally makes it over to you, and he says, "Hello, are you Kinravah?"
I am indeed. I assume your name is...
My name, Ian Cognito. Nice to meet you.
I'm sorry, did your mother give you that name?
Yeah, well, what's the difference?
I mean, Ian Incognito. I mean, your mother clearly had a sense of humor. Not that that's a bad thing, but, you know.
It's a family name, all right?
Okay. Anyway, I trust that everything's been packed for the journey.
He kind of like motions over towards the cart, and the two halflings that were talking to each other kind of just nod in, like both of them nod at the same exact time. And you see that the human kind of turns back to you. He said, "Yeah, I guess we were just waiting on you. Looks like everything's packed up. Are you ready to go?"
Ready as I'll ever be.
All right. I don't know if you know anything about Icewind, but it's pretty crazy. And then he stops talking. And he's like, "The old man wasn't lying, was he?" You're one of them.
Well, I'd like to think I'm a local, but if you're referring to my skin, then, well...
Sorry, I've just never seen one of you in real life. I've heard things, but... sorry. Tomlin said you were good people, so I trust him.
Well, so long as you keep your pitchers and torches away, I'm pretty sure we'll get along perfectly fine.
I don't think you'll have a problem with that. It's way too cold out here for pitches.
Excellent.
Torches, on the other hand. And he pulls out a torch. He pulls out a torch, and he goes, "We need one of these for the night, anytime it gets dark, so I hope that's all right with you."
So long as they're keeping you warm and not making me alarmingly warm, then I'm sure we'll be fine.
No. We need it for the light, being so dark out. So, anyways, if you just want to go over there and prepare to leave, I'll get the dogs ready.
Of course. She then walks up to the halflings just to see what they're up to right now.
They look to be talking about the journey. One of them seems to be very much the talker, and the other one more in a defensive kind of argument. The one arguing is the little bit larger one, male, and he seems to be talking to the female. And he says,
I could swear we were gonna get more for this.
and he notices you as you walk up and kind of just stops talking. And all you can see, literally all you can see, is just a little slit where the eyes are, as everything else is covered up by a cloth. Just very, very much like a cloth that covers his face and his forehead and is wrapped around his head. And he goes,
So, we're taking you, huh?
Well, I hope that's the plan.
Well, it looks like you're not too heavy. You can hop on the back if you want.
Oh, only if it's no trouble.
It's no trouble for me, at least.
and he kind of looks over at the female. She goes,
Well, don't look at me! Whatever.
and he goes,
Do you need any help with anything?
No, I should be fine. Just wanted to see how things would go in here. Have you made this trip off?
That's our job, is to make this trip.
and he kind of looks over and he looks behind him and he points out the actual cart that you're about to jump into, and it is just filled to the brim with different types of swords and metals and stuff like that. It looks to be more like scrap metal, though. It is not necessarily like like a high quality swords or metals or anything like that. And he goes,
Now, we're supposed to be making a shipment, and we just so happened to run into your friend. He said you needed some way to get over there.
I see. Is it safe for me to be in the back there with all that scrap?
Sure, why not? Look, I'll
Doesn't
make
give
some
him an
room for you.
answer.
I'll make some
She
room
just
for you.
looks at him.
yeah, you can look at him and he's like,
Fine.
and he like gets up and just like you hear cling clang cling clang 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 cling clang clang as he like moves a lot of the metal out of the way and clears just like a tiny spot for you to be able to shift into if you wanted.
She nods her head and then, thank you. I appreciate not ending up with cuts all over me. Completely.
He kind of like just looks at you and like nods his head, and he starts heading back to the front of the cart of the sled, and you hear from the female,
I saw the way you looked at her.
he's like,
What? What are you talking about?
and you just hear them start bickering at each other again.
Well, better reaction than expected. Alright. She, climbs onto the back, but then she looks towards Omen. Fly about 50 feet up above us, just to keep an eye on things, would you?
Omen almost silently just flaps his wings once, and suddenly as he flaps his wings once, you can see he's having a little bit of trouble staying airborne with the weather. Even with the calmest of weathers, it seems that flying is very much impeded.
If it gets too much, if it gets too worse, then come on back down. Don't really have many resources to keep summoning you at this point.
He kind of just, he's keeping an eye on you as you talk, and he just has he just, doesn't give you a nod or anything like that, but he looks back up, and you already have a feeling of reassurance as he knows what you're saying.
Alright.
And as you and Omen kind of prepare for the journey, you see that Ian has finished doing what he needs to do with the dogs as he gives a nice pat on their head before he himself kind of jumps on the side of the wagon, or not the wagon, side of the sled that you are currently on. And you hear a crack as you hear,
Mush! Mush! Go, go, go!
and as soon as he does, the dogs start mushing down the trail. He kind of yanks you as they start going pretty quickly, And you note that the trail is not so much a trail as it is just a bit of a cutout area between two large embankments of snow. You hear Ian kind of yell up over the wind as you guys are traveling. And I'll switch up the weather a bit. So you guys are sledding down the in the blizzard or in the snow and going as fast as you are because going as fast as you are in the snow just makes it even more cold. You kind of want to just bundle up as much as you possibly can as you're going. You feel that you're
charging battery
at the edge of too cold. And suddenly, as you're kind of going for a little bit, Ian calls out to you as you're kind of like on the side. As he's on the side, excuse me, and you can hear him yell out over the wind. The weather is pretty good out, actually. Shouldn't take us more than about 3 hours to get there.
It seems to have gotten worse since I arrived here.
And he goes, worse, right. All right. Shouldn't be too long before we see Alanu.
Alanu?
Yeah, Alanu. Our Goliath friend. She was sent out hunting not too long ago. Said we were gonna meet up along the way.
She went out alone?
Yeah. Crazy, isn't she?
Unfortunately, by standards of most of Town. And she mumbles that last bit.
And go ahead and roll a history check for me.
Okay. History. Ooh, I'm proficient. So 12 plus 6. 18.
18?
Yes.
Okay. Then you know that with that 18, you know that when he says Goliath friend, you've never seen a Goliath, but in your studies there at the library, you've seen drawings of these creatures, of these beings, and detailed kind of descriptions of what they are. You know, Goliaths come from the mountainous areas here in Icewind. And most of the time you'll see in the descriptions and in the pictures that you had seen drawn into the books, you see that they are mostly covered in tattoos from head to toe nearly. And you know that they are strong. They are a much stronger race of creatures here within the world. And as you are on your way, the next couple of hours go somewhat uneventful. Aside from the freezing and biting cold that you constantly have to recover yourself and readjust and make sure that you're kind of making sure that you're okay, you see that even Omen has to come down onto your shoulder many times within that time in order to make sure that it stays up with you on the quick move.
When it comes down, and I'm gonna cast like a small firebolt in my hands, but not actually release it, just to have a small bit of fire between my hands to help keep us warm.
Yeah. So you kind of hold a firebolt in your hand from time to time. The flame itself burning a dim purplish aura glow. And as you go on, you see that the sled is being pulled along the barely visible path that seems to be carved by the brave traders, foregoing the inherent risks that the everlasting night has brought upon the lands. And just ahead in the distance, your drow vision, the dark vision that you inherently have, allows you to see a large humanoid with something being held over its shoulders and back. You see that probably a good 100 feet off. You do anything?
At that, I sort of look back, call back at them through the blizzard. I think I see your Alanu friend.
You see that just by you saying that, it kind of alerts the two halflings, and you hear, whoa, 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 and they pull back on the reins, and the dogs kind of bark for a moment and stop the sled. And as they stop the sled, you hear you hear Ian kind of hop up off the side, just give you like a moment kind of thing, and he makes his way up the embankment and kind of like around wherever this figure kind of stands. And the figure looks to be standing just pretty patiently in the snow. It seems to be cooling her hands from time to time by like readjusting the thing on her back, bending over so it kind of balances there, and then kind of grabbing it again. And eventually, you see her turn around, and Ian kind of approaches out of the darkness from behind her. And Ian looks over to her, and they seem to be talking for a second. And as they're talking, Ian finally finishes with her, finished talking, and he makes it back towards you, and the Goliath seems to be following him. And the Goliath stands like a good foot taller than him, and he seems to be a pretty tall dude himself. And you can tell by looking at Olanu that, just like in the books, the cold weather doesn't seem to be having quite nearly the effect that it's been having on the rest of Icewind's residents, due to the fact that you can see with her, by her lack of like complete winter clothing. You see that she is wearing clothes, but it's not nearly enough to stay warm to the normal average person. So after you see her and Ian converse and begin to make their way back, you can see now that she has a large dead deer just kind of straddling her back as she pulls it towards the cart. And as she's pulling it back towards the cart, you can see that the two halflings are giddy. You see one of them like and point towards the deer, and then one of them turns and tries to give you like a high five.
She like awkwardly looks at him for a moment before you cast in Mage Hand and have him Mage Hand high five him.
You give him the Mage Hand high five, and he kind of freaks out for a moment, and they both kind of like stare at you. And at that moment, they realize you are not just a regular thing, and they both like immediately just kind of go back to being stationary and just looking straight ahead and like looking down at the reins.
She just gives the most tired sigh possible and looks back at Omen.
And the large Goliath comes up to the side of the cart, tosses the large deer right on top of all the metal swords, and nearly like having it slide into you a little bit. And she looks at you, notices your presence, and just walks and heads towards where the dogs are. Ian walks back up to you and says, "That's what I was talking about earlier. Anyways, what is it exactly that you're doing here?
In
If you don't mind me
it's-
asking.
In Icewind itself, or just head into Bryn Shander?
Oh, what brings you to Bryn Shander?
Oh, I'm sure I'm just there for sightseeing, tourism. I hear Icewind Dale and Bryn Shander are just the peak of tourist season at this moment.
Sure. Tourism. Right. Anyways. Look, we gotta make a stop at the Black Iron Blades. If you don't mind. Olanu needs new gear. After her hunting trip, it seems that her weapons are kind of shit. After that, you're free to go wherever it is you were heading. So,
Are you only going to be taking me to there, or will you be going on to Bryn Shander after that?
Oh, it's within Bryn Shander. It's just
Oh,
we'll be
okay.
stopping there instead of leaving you on the outskirts, of course.
All right.
You know, the last time I saw your kind, they
I'm
attempted
going to stop you right there. If it involves the words Drist Dro Erden, I swear to anything above and below the ground, you will regret the next words that leave your mouth.
I don't know too much about Drizzt myself. I was talking about the one that came to Goodmead and tried to kill the council member.
Oh, well, that's completely different. I apologize. What was that? What was this about?
Roll a history check.
Oh no. Come on. 8 plus 6. 14?
14? Okay. So you've read about what he speaks of. You've heard about the drow that attempted to kill the house speaker of Goodmead. But from like the lack of detail that you got in the reading, like in the writing or whatever was in the library, the lack of detail makes you think that it was probably a made-up story or something like that to kind of put a bad name or a spin on drow, kind of like a propaganda piece or even just a scary story to tell children. You kind of got that from the writing itself, as it wasn't very well written. It's kind of like a tall tale, if anything. And of course, you yourself know that if it were a drow, it would have been way more brutal than what was told in the story.
Do you know any specifics about it, or do you just simply know the rumor?
I mean, I know about, you know, he said he went to like stab the guy, and he just fumbled or something and dropped the dagger, and the guards caught him and strung him up the next day, put him out in the cold.
I would suggest you don't worry too much about that. I can tell you immediately at this moment that is without a doubt fantasy.
I mean, say what you will, they're not known for their friendliness, that's for sure.
You're right,
My
but
apologies.
is the speaker still alive?
Well, sure.
That's why it's fantasy.
He kind of like squints his eyes and like looks you like, well, he tries to look you in the eyes, and the second he looks you in the eyes, he can see that the outside of your eye is like full of black and the inside is actually lighter than the outside. And he takes a moment, like looks you directly in the eyes, and then immediately kind of like stops staring at you, like in an attempt to either not offend you or just complete awkwardness on his side. You can sense that he is not scared of you, but he is he feels a little bit maybe befuddled by whoever you may be. Maybe he doesn't want to press his luck.
Let me assure you, I have nothing to do with anything of that sort, but I know firsthand exactly what my people are capable of. If one of them fumbled, that's not possible. They simply would not have been sent to the surface.
Hey, whatever you say. I just say what I hear. Anyways, we should be about an hour outside of Bryn Shander. So keep tight and hey, don't let our food go to waste, yeah? Make sure you keep a hold on to it.
I'll do my best.
Appreciate it. All right, Hans, Gretchen, let's go.
And they don't
She'll-
even like look back at you because they're like afraid of what you had just done.
She like awkwardly holds the deer with her 8 strength.
You can
Try
see
to keep it in place.
you can see that she like doesn't want to touch it all the way, so she's just like gripping onto it like this, like barely holding onto maybe like a hoof that's like sticking like awkwardly like right in front of your face. You just like move it a little bit out of the way and just hold onto it like that. And and you see that Ian gets back onto the side of the thing, and Olanu has already trekked like 100 meters in the opposite direction as you guys were talking. She looks to just be straight up walking through the snow, making her way towards Bryn Shander. And you begin to make your trek again as whoosh, Hans and Gretchen hit the sled, and you begin moving through the snow. You hear from the side before you make it to the city. You hear from the side yet again as Ian calls out to you. He goes,
Well, look! Hey! If you're gonna get anywhere in Icewind, you're gonna need coin! You're not gonna make it alphabetizing dusty books! Look! You seem smart! I'm sure you'll figure something out in Bryn Shander!
Coin. Of all the things to have not brought with me. Thank you. I understand.
you see him kind of nod his head as he like pulls down a large set of goggles that have been sitting on top of his head this whole time. The weather seems to be picking up and getting worse the closer you get to Bryn Shander. And he places the goggles kind of over his eyes and kind of looks out towards the, where he's going as he has his hands up, holding the side of the thing. And you start making your way up a slope towards what looks like the outside of a large town. The outside has a large palisade of chopped down trees that have been put up and sharpened at the top. And Ian kind of goes, "There it is! Bryn Shander! Shouldn't be too much further!"
It's larger than I expected.
You can see now that a bit of green aura is slowly rolling across the sky from your position, from the night sky. And you know that come nighttime, this green aura, or aurora, makes its way across the sky. And there's been rumors about why. Because it's been almost every night that they've seen this. And every night that the aura or aurora makes its way across the sky, another day doesn't come. As you get closer to the top of the hill, you see the large Goliath has already made it there and is literally waiting for you. As the slower, because of course everything that's packed on top of it, the slower sled eventually makes its way to the city outskirts. Olanu continues inward towards the city as you guys make it to the city's edge and are stopped by the two guards that are just outside the city. Olanu just passes by him. She kind of nods to them, they nod to her. As you guys get stopped, they look to be doing a one-over on the cart to make sure that whatever's inside isn't crazy.
Before they manage to get to the back of the cart, Kinravah's just gonna wave her hand and cast Prestidigitation just to get any of the blood that's undoubtedly leaked onto her outfit off of her clothes, just in case.
Yeah, sure. The deer has definitely leaked onto you at some point, and at this point you press the digitation, and the blood itself kind of lifts off of your clothing and then disappears into kind of like red motes that eventually disintegrate in the air. And as you press the digitation yourself, they approach the back of the cart, and they look at you. They're like, who are you? Are you, you're not normally a part of this crew? And Ian says, don't worry, she's with us. And he kind of like looks you over, and you can see he's carrying like a very shitty looking pike. The wood itself is either splintering or old, and the pike at the top looks to be like held on by some strange rope. You can't tell exactly what type of rope it is, but it's just tied across the top. And the spear itself, the metal itself, is kind of warped. You see, it's like, instead of being like straight like this, it's like, you know, like maybe like this at the top, you know, curved just a little bit. And he goes, all right, yeah, whatever, make your way in. And you hear Hans and Gretchen, and you can see the two guards like staring at your owl as you continue past, and they begin to talk to each other as you make your way through. As you're going through Benshander, you can tell that this city is very large, even in comparison to Easthaven, which itself is quite a large city. But the desolate streets kind of lead to almost a ghost-like town, as nobody really seems to be outside. You see very few fire-lit houses, mostly dark. You see a lot of boarded up doors, boarded up windows. The only few people you do see outside seem to be rushing or making their way to another abode from where they're going. They look up and stare at you as you pass by on your sled for that little bit of a moment, but you make your way towards the center of the city.
As they go in, she sort of pulls her hood up a little bit more to try and hide her face a bit.
The others, you can't even tell what or who they could be as you pass by them quickly enough. And as you finally make your way to the center of the city, you can see Olanu is just like unbuckling something like across her waist, and she throws a large set of swords down on the ground. And as she does, like one of the swords literally snaps in half, and you can see her like scratching the back of her head. And she opens the door to the inside of the Black Iron Blades blacksmith. And as she opens the door, you can see you guys come to a stop right outside. And as you guys come to a stop right outside of the hut that is this blacksmith, you can see that the windows on this one have not been boarded up, but it seems that there is a bit of frost on the windows, covering up your vision of the inside, but it looks to be a lot warmer on the inside. And you can see now that Hans and Gretchen are just now shoveling out the metal onto the ground next to the location that they stop. And Ian seems to be helping them, but he comes up to you and he says, you know, Tomlin and I were old friends, so I take him by his word. I heard you might need some help, you know, furthering your education and doing what you're doing. Yeah, I know it's not much, but here might help you get started. And he holds out his hand, and you can see in his hand about 10 silver pieces. And he goes,
This is what Tomlin gave us to take you to Bryn Shander. But it's probably better that you take it anyways. Not a big deal.
Are you sure about this? I know coin is hard to come by in these regions.
That's fine. I know the bartenders here. They owe me a drink anyways. As much work as we do for them.
And he kind of motions over to Hans and Gretchen. And you see Gretchen just kind of grumbles and Hans gives like a thumbs up as they continue working. And he goes, all right, be safe. He bundles up a little bit more.
She takes the offered silver and just looks at it for a moment before looking back at him.
He goes,
hey, if you go inside, I'm sure Garn the Hammer and Elza might have work for you. They have work for us all the time, so you never know. Might start there.
She looks at her lady noodle arms for a moment into her coat.
They give all kinds. He sees you doing that. He's like, no worries. They give all kinds of work. You never know. Maybe they need a new clerk.
I'll make sure I speak with them about it. Thank you.
Yeah, no problem. Nice meeting you. Hey! It's nice seeing a drow for the first time and, you not trying to slit my throat.
Yet. She sort of gives him a bit of a wink and a grin.
You can see his eyes kind of widen in a moment of surprise. And then his eyes kind of go into a happy, good one, you got me. And he turns back to begin helping Hans and Gretchen. And you can tell he yells at Hans for placing one of the swords wrong or something like that. And Hans just kind of starts cursing at him in another language that you can't understand. And he sees you now, and he kind of gives you a nod towards the door, showing you where the front entrance was that Olano just made her way in.
I'll have Omen land on my shoulder real fast. Just check to see if he's alright.
He lands on your shoulder, and it looks like he had been already perched up on the top of the house that you currently were standing in front of, or the hut, at least, that you were currently standing underneath. And as he comes down, he kicks down a bit of snow that was hanging off the rooftop, and it lands on top of Gretchen's head, as you just see her look up into the sky and start cursing under her breath and continue working. Lands on your shoulder. Go ahead.
She sort of smiles a bit, but then she casts Firebolt again to make a blue flame just to help warm up Omen a little bit.
Yeah, sure.
Before then slowly heading inside.
As you go to make your way to the door, you can see that it is closed shut. You gonna go inside then?
She's going to knock on the door first, just to make sure it's okay to go in.
Yep. As you make your way inside, you knock on the door very daintily, and you kind of just wait for a moment. And suddenly coming to the door, opening it for you in front of you, kind of holding back from the gust of wind that bursts through the door, you see a tall, very pretty, red-headed woman with curly red hair. And you see beads kind of in her hair. She has green eyes. Very beautiful looking girl, freckles on her face. And as she kind of looks at you, she kind of looks you up and down. That's where we'll end today's session.
Okay.
I hope you enjoyed it.
I hope everyone enjoyed it. I certainly enjoyed it. I promise the accent will get better over time, guys. I'm learning.